Have you ever wondered why the more you show love, the more she pulls away, why the deeper your affection grows, the colder she becomes? You thought loving her harder would fix everything. You believed that if you just proved how much you cared, she'd finally see your worth. But instead, she started to act like you were disposable, like the more you gave, the less she saw you, and the more you loved, the less she respected you. That's not an accident, it's a pattern. You probably didn't even notice it happening. It started small. She didn't text back for a few hours. You told yourself she was busy. Then she stopped making plans, started showing up late, became distant. You chalked it up to stress, her job, her period, her mood. You made excuses for her coldness while blaming yourself for not being enough. So what did you do? You leaned in. You tried harder. You showed her even more love. You brought her dinner. You forgave things that made your chest tighten. You stayed patient when she became rude. You offered emotional safety to someone who wasn't offering it back. You began walking on eggshells just to avoid upsetting her. And somewhere in all that sacrifice, all that love, you lost the one thing she was originally drawn to: your strength. You gave her the pedestal, and in doing so, you stepped off your own. Here's the brutal truth: love given in desperation, in imbalance, in hopes of earning validation, is not love. It's submission. And most women, even if they don't admit it, lose attraction the moment they feel they've emotionally conquered a man. This isn't about being heartless. This is about understanding power dynamics, psychological, biological, behavioral. From an evolutionary standpoint, women are wired to seek strength, security, dominance. They want to feel emotionally held. Yes, but not by a man who's dependent on their approval for self-worth. The moment your love becomes a plea, whether silent or loud, you shift from partner to pet. She may smile at your affection. She may post pictures of your gifts. But deep down, she starts resenting how easy it was to break you. She tests you emotionally, verbally, sexually, not because she wants to destroy you, but because she needs to feel that your center can't be moved. When you fold, when you apologize for things you didn't do, when you excuse her disrespect, when you romanticize her inconsistency, she doesn't feel closer to you. She feels superior, and she starts to treat you accordingly. Somewhere deep in your bones, you thought loving her too much would protect you from abandonment, that if you were generous enough, loyal enough, kind enough, she couldn't possibly walk away. But it's that very overinvestment that triggered the imbalance, and she felt it. Women are acutely tuned to this kind of shift, not because they're malicious, but because their subconscious is always scanning. Can I trust him to lead, to protect, to be the stable force? When your emotions became tangled in her unpredictability, you stopped being the stable force. You became reactive. You started to worry more about how she'd feel than what you truly needed. You said yes to plans you didn't want. You tolerated moods that drained you. You let her rewrite boundaries you once swore you'd never cross. And worst of all, you convinced yourself that this was love. Let me tell you something most men will never hear. Loving too much is not romantic. It's a loss of identity. It happens when a man hasn't anchored himself in something deeper than her approval. When his sense of worth is floating, and she becomes the only thing that gives it meaning. You may think you're being loyal, noble, devoted, but from the outside, it looks like you're a man bleeding slowly while smiling. And women, especially emotionally immature women, don't respect men who bleed for them too easily. They respect men who have limits, boundaries, edges, the kind of men who don't flinch when she cries, don't chase when she storms out, don't compromise their values just to keep the peace, because peace isn't real if it costs your dignity. You weren't supposed to mold yourself to her preferences. You weren't supposed to beg her to stay. You weren't supposed to shrink your needs to avoid an argument. Every time you did, she saw it, she registered it, and slowly, she started to feel what no man wants a woman to feel, that she could do better. It's not that she wanted a jerk, it's that she wanted a man who didn't need her to feel whole. A man who loved her, sure, but from a place of strength, not survival. And once you gave up your edge, once you made her the sun around which your world revolved, she stopped seeing you as the prize. She started treating you like the guy who was always available, always apologizing, always giving, and always losing ground. So what does she do once she senses that shift? She stops investing. She starts pulling away. Not always physically, not always openly, but emotionally she begins to detach. And here's what most men don't see. She doesn't even always know why. She just starts feeling less respect, less urgency, less desire. Your kindness, once charming, now feels clingy. Your devotion, once attractive, now feels weak. And because she can't logically explain that drop in attraction, she blames you for changing. But it wasn't that you changed. It's that you gave her the power she never asked to hold. When a woman feels like you're more into her than she is into you, the balance collapses, and love, real love, can't breathe in imbalance. One person gives, the other takes. One person hopes, the other hesitates. One person is addicted to presence, the other to power. You become predictable, even when you're hurting. You become safe in a way that kills her curiosity. And that's when she starts pushing limits. She flirts with other guys in front of you. She becomes dismissive, sarcastic, even cruel. Not always to leave you, but to see if you'll finally push back. She wants to know if the man she once admired still lives inside you. If he'll set a boundary, if he'll check her, if he'll leave the table when respect is no longer being served. But you don't. You wait. You explain. You double down on love. That's when she knows she's in charge of your emotional temperature, that she can show up late, ignore your needs, disrespect your values, and you'll still be there. You've become addicted to loving her more than she can even respect you. And let's be clear, this isn't about being cold, controlling, or emotionally distant. It's about self-possession, about staying rooted in your standards regardless of how beautiful she is, how much you desire her, or how deeply you've invested. When you cross your own boundaries to keep a woman, you teach her to view your love as weakness. And in a brutal irony, the love you thought would keep her close becomes the very reason she loses attraction. Because here's the paradox: women want to feel safe in your presence, not superior to your purpose. They want to know you're steady, that you won't collapse under the weight of their emotions, their tests, their storms, that your sense of direction doesn't bend every time they change their tone. But if every time she disrespects you, you respond with more affection, more tolerance, more gifts, more patience, you're teaching her that you'll reward bad behavior, that you'll tolerate neglect, that you'll love her more when she gives you less. No woman respects the man she can manipulate. You probably don't even realize you've been manipulated, because she never screamed it. She never said, "I want to see if I can emotionally dominate you." No, it was softer than that, subtler. It came in the form of emotional withdrawal, cold sarcasm, unexplained silence, passive-aggressive comments. And each time you responded with warmth, you closed the distance. You tried to be the bigger person. You thought it was maturity. You thought it was noble. It wasn't noble, it was naive. You were trained by media, by culture, maybe even by your own mother, that being endlessly loving makes you a good man. But in the real world, where attraction is shaped by emotional polarity, it makes you disposable. Because the more you love a woman who hasn't earned it, the more she learns she doesn't have to, and the deeper the imbalance grows, the harder it becomes to recover your self-worth. Not because she won't give it back, but because you handed it over so many times. You forgot how to hold it yourself. That's why it hurts so much when she finally leaves. Not just because you lost her, but because you realize how much of you gave away in the process. Your time, your energy, your silence, your pride, all offered like tokens, hoping it would buy loyalty. But loyalty can't be bought with overgiving. It's forged in mutual respect. And respect is only born when you know where your line is and you have the spine to enforce it. Most men never learn this. They keep loving too much, hoping harder, shrinking smaller. And every time, they wonder why it ends in resentment, confusion, betrayal. They think they were just too good, but they weren't too good. They were too afraid to be powerful, and deep down, she saw that. She saw the fear beneath the flowers, the need behind the compliments, the anxiety behind the texts. And it made her pull away, not because she didn't like you, but because you stopped being the man she could admire. Now here's the twist you probably weren't ready for. She didn't want to feel this way. Most women don't go into relationships thinking, I'm going to destroy his confidence. But once she senses you no longer value yourself independently of her approval, once she realizes she's become the center of your emotional world, something inside her shifts. She starts pulling away, not just because she's losing attraction, but because she feels the weight of something unnatural. A burden, a pressure to be your emotional oxygen, and no one wants to breathe for someone else. You thought you were showing love. She felt it as neediness. You thought you were proving loyalty. She felt it as desperation. You thought you were building a future. She felt trapped. And the worst part, the more you felt her slipping away, the harder you clung, the tighter your grip, the faster she drifted. Because the second a woman feels she has nothing left to earn, no mystery to unravel, no strength left to test, she mentally checks out. And it's not your fault that you were never taught this. Most men weren't. We're told that love means giving everything, that being vulnerable means full emotional exposure, that a real man is one who sacrifices endlessly. But the truth is, women are not inspired by men who sacrifice their core. They're inspired by men who stand tall in it, because emotional strength is not loud. It's not aggression. It's not manipulation. It's not withholding love to control her. It's the opposite. It's being able to love without abandoning yourself. Being able to say, I care deeply about you, but I will not chase you at the cost of my dignity. Most men can't say that. They've never even imagined saying it, because they confuse being a provider with being a martyr. They think being needed is the same as being loved. But when your value in a relationship is reduced to how much you can give, how much you can fix, how much you can forgive, you've already lost. You've become a tool, not a man. And that's when the imbalance becomes permanent. She expects more and gives less. She critiques more and praises less. She tests more and respects less. Until one day, you're looking at the version of her you used to love and wondering, what happened to the woman who once admired me? Nothing happened to her. She just outgrew the man you became. And that's the hardest truth to swallow. That the very behaviors you thought would hold the relationship together were the same ones that drove her away. Not because you weren't good enough, but because you made her too important and yourself too invisible. You kept investing in someone who had already stopped investing in you. You waited for her to come back emotionally while bleeding out quietly. You clung to memories, hoping they'd return with enough affection to reignite something. But love doesn't work like that. It respects those who respect themselves. A man who loves too much without boundaries, without purpose, without emotional independence becomes a liability, not to society, not to women, but to himself, because he starts measuring his value based on her mood, her texts, her tone, her availability. And you start shrinking. You stop calling out disrespect because you don't want to fight. You stop expressing your own needs because you don't want to lose her. You stop showing your truth because you're scared she'll leave. And that's exactly what destroys you. Not her, you. Because when you love too much, without guardrails, without strength, without a center, you lose your voice. You lose your posture. You lose your pride. And you start living a life where your peace depends on how someone else feels about you. That's not love. That's emotional servitude. And she can't fall in love with a servant. She can't surrender to a man who already surrendered to her. She can't respect someone who's afraid to walk away. Even if you do everything right. Even if you're a great guy. Even if you give her the world. The world doesn't matter if it came from a man who lost himself. So, you need to see it clearly now. The emotional trap wasn't the relationship. It was how you distorted love into a one-sided performance. How you silenced your voice so hers could be louder. How you believed her affection was something you had to earn by losing yourself. That's why men who love too much lose value. Not because love is weakness, but because needing love more than you need self-respect is. And once you start down that road, you stop leading, you start pleading, and she senses it. She may not say it, she may not even be fully aware of it, but it hits her in the gut. This man needs me too much, and I can't trust that. Trust doesn't grow in desperation. It grows in the presence of a man who doesn't flinch when tested. Who can love but won't beg? Who can care but won't compromise his code? That's when she respects you. That's when she stays. Not because she has to, but because she feels safe in your strength. So now the question becomes, what do you do? What does a man do when he finally wakes up and realizes he's been loving too much, giving too much, chasing too much, bending too much? And it's not only failed to create closeness, but has destroyed the very value he was trying to prove. The first instinct most men have is to get angry, to turn bitter, to blame her. And yes, there may be valid reasons for resentment. Maybe she used your kindness. Maybe she strung you along. Maybe she played games. But anger won't fix it. Rage doesn't rebuild a backbone. What rebuilds it is clarity. You must understand that you're not broken. You're not weak. You're not a fool for having loved deeply. What you are is misled. You are operating under a false premise that love alone is enough. That effort equals reward. That good intentions guarantee respect. They don't. In relationships, just like in life, respect comes from leverage, from posture, from restraint, from knowing what you offer and never giving it out of fear. And this is where most men fail. They try to earn love with volume. They think if they just do more, give more, love harder, something will change. But it doesn't. Because women aren't moved by desperation. They're moved by certainty, emotional certainty, masculine certainty, the unshakable core of a man who does not need her affection to validate his worth. And until you reclaim that center, you'll continue to chase women who punish your love instead of appreciate it. So the shift has to be internal. It starts with this one idea: you do not owe anyone your emotional labor just because you feel love. Let that sink in. Your love is not a currency that buys her time, her loyalty, or her admiration. Your love is an extension of your character, and it must be guarded with the same standards you apply to your time, your energy, your values. If she does not meet your standards, If she does not reciprocate effort, if she does not protect your vulnerability with grace, you pull back. Immediately, without apology, not as a game, but as a reflex. Because love without reciprocity is poison. This doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you stop leaking. You stop bleeding in the hope she'll notice. You stop over-explaining. You stop giving one more chance. You stop looking at her as the solution to your internal emptiness. Because no woman can love a man who hates himself enough to abandon his standards for approval. And that's what overloving is, a form of self-abandonment. You put her above your truth. You sacrifice your integrity in the name of being the better man. You forgive too fast, wait too long, tolerate too much. You betray yourself so she won't. And in doing so, you teach her to disrespect you, not because she's cruel, but because you've trained her that your love comes without cost, that no matter what she does, you'll stay, that you're emotionally available even when she's not emotionally fair. And that training sticks. It becomes the new normal. The only way out is to reverse the dynamic completely. And that requires a level of detachment most men have never practiced. Detachment not from love, but from outcome. You have to learn to love without expectation, to give without bleeding, to walk away from disrespect without a second thought. This doesn't mean you become cold. It means you become discerning. Not every woman deserves access to your love. Not every tear is sincere. Not every apology means change. You must watch patterns, not promises. You must observe tone, not text. You must feel energy, not just listen to words. And most importantly, you must measure how you feel in her presence. Do you feel respected? Do you feel heard? Do you feel like a man, or do you feel tolerated, silenced, drained? Your nervous system always knows. The body doesn't lie. When you're overloving, you feel anxious, confused, off balance. When you're aligned, you feel calm, clear, certain. That's how you know you've shifted. And it starts by withdrawing your emotional investment the moment you sense disrespect. Not later, not after one more talk. Right then, quietly, firmly. You don't punish her, you don't yell, you don't explain. You exit the game, because the man who exits the game isn't the loser. He's the only one who remembered it was never worth playing with someone who changes the rules every time she feels powerful. Women don't forget the man who stops playing. They remember him. They feel his absence. They question themselves. Not because he manipulated them, but because his dignity created contrast. And that contrast haunts them more than any gift, any compliment, any gesture ever could. You don't win her back by proving your worth. You reclaim your worth by walking away when it's not being seen. That's where your power is. Now listen carefully, because this is where most men either rise or fall again. When you finally pull back, when you detach emotionally, when you stop giving her the kind of access she's no longer earning, something will happen. She'll notice, she'll feel the shift. And if she has any unresolved feelings for you at all, she'll respond, but not always in a straight line. She might suddenly become warmer, reach out, flirt, ask about your day. She might act sweet again, like the woman you remember. And in that moment, you will feel something dangerous. Hope that she's come back. Hope that maybe she finally sees you. Hope that your patience, your pain, your loyalty meant something. That hope is the final test. Because if you break your new standard just because she showed interest again, it was never a standard. It was a strategy. And she'll feel that. She'll know you're still emotionally reactive, still chasing her validation, still waiting for her to save the relationship. And when she sees that, she'll disappear again, not out of cruelty, but because deep down she was hoping you'd changed. And when she realizes you haven't, when she sees you're still just waiting for her to choose you, she loses respect. Again, this is why detachment is not a tactic, it's a transformation. You're not pretending to walk away. You're not testing her. You're not playing emotional chess. You're reclaiming your space, your spine, your silence. You're saying, I'm not afraid of losing someone who makes me lose myself. Because that's what this is really about. It was never about her. It was about how quickly you gave her power over your inner world, how you placed your peace in her hands, how you made your self-worth dependent on her moods, her attention, her love. You thought loving her deeply would bring you closer, but the moment you stopped loving yourself equally, you began to vanish. And the fix isn't external. You don't become powerful by studying texts or reading quotes or repeating affirmations. You become powerful when you start choosing you in moments where you used to abandon yourself. When she ghosts you, you don't reach out. When she disrespects you, you don't explain why it hurt. When she tests your boundaries, you enforce them without flinching. When she's hot and cold, you stop adjusting your temperature to match hers. And when she walks away, you let her, not to win, not to prove anything, but because you finally understand that your worth is not up for negotiation. Most men have never lived a single day in that kind of emotional clarity. They've spent years trying to earn back the attention of women who stopped valuing them months ago. They've bled quietly in the name of love. They've tolerated confusion because they were too scared to feel lonely. But loneliness isn't what destroys men. Self-betrayal is. Every time you ignore your gut, every time you justify her disrespect, every time you compromise your truth just to feel close, you abandon yourself. And when you abandon yourself too many times, you start to believe you were never worth staying for in the first place. That's the real cost of loving too much. Not the heartbreak, not the rejection, not the ghosting. It's the silent erosion of self-trust. You begin to doubt your instincts. You second-guess your worth. You become addicted to proving yourself to people who wouldn't lift a finger to understand you. You become obsessed with the idea of being chosen instead of choosing yourself. That ends now. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be respected. And respect only comes when you start saying no. No to chasing, no to pleasing, no to tolerating, no to overgiving, no to emotional one-way streets, no to negotiating with someone who isn't negotiating in good faith. You are not a project. You are not a rehab center. You are not a therapy session with arms. You are a man. And when you start moving like one calm, rooted, emotionally disciplined, the whole dynamic shifts. You stop needing women to see your worth. You start demanding it through your presence. You stop trying to fix broken connections. You start building from a place of power. You stop asking, why doesn't she love me? And start asking, why would I keep loving someone who doesn't respect me? This is the shift from emotional dependency to quiet, unshakable self-possession. Not loud, not arrogant, just clear. And in that clarity, something strange will happen. You'll stop attracting the chaos. You'll stop feeling the need to convince. You'll start seeing red flags faster. You'll start walking away sooner. And the right kind of women, the ones who are secure, grounded, feminine in spirit, they'll feel that energy. Because a man who doesn't need love to prove his worth is the most dangerous man in the room. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.